Alright, recording started again. Hey guys, we're going to go to part 2 of our analysis Reno. So that means you have to go to season finals day 2. We're going to look at the games that Hart played versus Hian. I'm missing one of the replays because I wasn't able to obs the first game of the day. My apologies. So let's just look at the games, the other ones. So Hian versus Hart on Nimbus. I don't remember if this was game 1, 2, or 3 since I don't have the initial replay, but we'll see. Just tuned in for the first time in a couple of weeks. When did Nate get GM? First time for him? I got GM a couple months ago, in June. Alright, so let's look at this game from Hart versus Hian. And I'll start another notepad up so that we can look at all beautiful things in life. So say Hart versus Hian Nimbus LE. Awesome. So Hian, his match versus Hian was quite different than the match versus Scarlet. Hart played out a much longer game this time around. I'm mostly going to go through all the cool little things that make his play good, because this match, he didn't really throw anything out of the ordinary. It was very standard. So say 10 depot, 14 CC, 15 rack, 16 gas. Very, very normal way to open up in the Terran versus Zerg matchup, because it gives you the power to, I mean, you want to play economically, but still get Hellions out. And even though Hian is a roacher, when you're playing cross spawns like this, it doesn't really work. This is also the only game in this series where Hian goes for a hatchery first strategy against Hart. I feel like it's a bit silly that so many Zergs are going 15 supply spawning pool with gas. Like Hian does it the other two or three games out of this series, and it really perplexed me. I wasn't a fan of it at all. But you'll notice a few things right off the bat, right? So Hart goes for the factory, the reactor. But this command center, man, it's been building for so long. He goes straight for a third command center before starting any additional production, which normally, and this is interesting to me, right? Because in a standard game, you get your factory really quickly, you get your reactor very quickly as well, but your third command center, oh, it's still quite difficult to get it this fast. So you're really juggling your gas income a lot when you open up like this. So it's a pretty impressively greedy build, and it even goes up to the second gas on this one, which he has to make some sort of compromise, and that's this bunker, right? You never want to build bunkers, because bunkers are very bad at killing your opponent unless you're 2-raxing them. But in this instance, you defend against this early Zergling poke, and you're kind of happy, right? Let's just keep looking from Hart's perspective. So Hart, what does he do in this game that's really blowing our minds away? It's a regular 3 command center build. It goes straight up into Banshee, which is not impressive in the least. It's not a fun build. It's a pretty easy to execute build. Actually, I will say it's fun, but it's not like a funny build, right? No one that's watching this is getting shaken up. You know what he does see though? He's like, that hatchery looks like it started about a little while ago, but not too early. So he knows, but he already scouted a few Zerglings that had come his way. There's nothing really else crazy on the map for Hian. Hian's Speedling opening delayed his lair, which, as you may have heard me say before, delays your tech. And when your tech is delayed, it makes dealing with things like Heli and Banshee a little bit tricky, since of course you have like this spine that he's going to build. He really is concerned about getting hit. And this defense is phenomenal from Hian. He has 3 queens and a bunch of Zerglings behind them. The important part is Zerglings behind them, because if the Banshees commit, then the Zerglings can always run forward and distract the Hellions. Now, I will say, it is very smart that Hian got the Overlord speed, but Hart does some good things, right? He builds the Viking, he scans around the map, he wants to know, hey, are you going to be going for some sort, you're going to have Overlords scouting, you're going to have Overlords looking around. Let's add up barracks. How many barracks does Hart go up to, Nathan? Can you tell me those dirty secrets? Well, 8 barracks. So there you go. The 2-2, everything lines up really well. It's like, Nate, does Hart do anything really crazy this game? No. This Viking goes pretty balls deep inside of his base, though. I will say that. But it actually scouts, so, sometimes when there's no Overlords, got to make the most of it. He sees the Spire in the Infestation Pit. Hian plays a very weird style this game, and I do believe Hian won one of the games against Hart. So this might be that game It's hard to remember the specific ones when we cast so many, but everything this game looks pretty good for HyuN. I was really impressed by the way that Hart was able to make this game work for himself, because instead of doing what most Terran players would do, and if you asked me, I would tell you that you want to push the right side of this 4th base. You always want to kill the 4th. That should be your focus. That should be the focus. Yeah, this is the game that this is actually the game that HyuN won with Broodlords. But there were a lot. Every point in this game looked really good for Hart up until the Broodlords came out onto the map. So we're gonna keep going just a little bit more on this game. I don't really have too much more to say here, but Hart is always pre-positioning his army. In this first push, this is really, if you want to learn how to be patient when you're playing in Terran versus Zerg and you don't want to lose to that big overwhelming push, right? Look at the way that Hart spreads his forces. He's got some Widow Mines. All of his Marines are in the back. Every Marine's kept in the back. What's up front that's actually attacking for Hart? The Banshee that he saved from the early game, a Marauder, he has some Hellbats. What's the thing that's similar about all these units? They have a lot of hit points. They can deal kind of well with a good number of Zerglings, but they also, because of those hit points, or the armor in the case of the Marauder, they're pretty okay versus Banelings, right? Hellbats aren't amazing versus Banelings, but they're okay. They take, it takes another 1 or 2 compared to Marines, and since they're big, the splash isn't as effective against them. So what does this allow him to do? Well, he even puts his Widow Mines down between these harassing forces and his Marines. It's like, Nate, this is a huge Zerg army. The Zerg actually has a ridiculous amount of Zergling Baneling. This doesn't really look too impressive of a Terran force, and it's not. But the positioning really allows him to take a cost-effective fight, right? Immediately, what's the first thing we notice? Well, you know what, Nathan? I think I'm starting to see what you're getting at here. Well, yeah, Banelings are detonating on this Marauder. Banelings are detonating on this Hellbat. How many other Banelings have detonated? I can't quite see, but you move forward. Oh, another Baneling detonates on that one. Let's see. Banelings. Okay, well, a bunch of Banelings detonate on that Hellbat. Great. So suddenly you have that front line. It's like, yeah, we took it out. Okay, you only have 19 Banelings now. It's weird to say that he only lost 3 because those other Banelings were attacking. They technically don't count as lost units. But Hart backs up. Well, he's immediately off of creep because of the way that he set his army up. So he's off creep, which means these Banelings can't really attack. You can't push off creep. And Hart's still in a really good position. Like, I love this so much because if you're, this is the point in the game where someone that jokingly brought this up, that's Benicio style, like, let's just run into his base. Wouldn't even be like the worst idea ever, I guess. But Widow Mines, Hart's a better player than me, so he would figure something out. But yeah, just a lot of Ling Bane, and I still like everything about this game for Hart except the Broodlords. Right, the Broodlords are really the only thing that messed him up, But I will say, trying to push this 4th base is not a bad idea. Like, at this point in the game, Hart's just fighting over creep. Like, he's not actually fighting for anything of value. And the spreading is great. He still has the Widow Mines in front of the Marines. He still has the Marauders in front of the Widow Mines. And this allows him to trade very cost effectively in a way that I think really allowed him to have a massive lead. But HyuN did just enough. He defended just enough, just long enough to get to Broodlords, and that's, obviously that's where this whole game turns around, because Hart maintains a supply lead, a substantial supply lead throughout the whole match. I think if he does that same push here, then he has a lot more he can do, because this creep spread wouldn't have happened. Like, he comes over and kills this creep, but there's no base here. Like, unless Hart, for whatever reason, doesn't realize there's a 4th here, like, that might be the biggest mistake he makes the whole game, is assuming that there's no 4th, or not attacking this base. Like, I really feel like he missed a big opportunity to get aggressive on a point that gave so much gas, like a couple hundred gas, hundreds of minerals. That's what really allows HyuN to make this switch into Broodlords. But outside of that, I still love everything he does. If you're playing a regular Terran versus Zerg, like, everything here is beautiful, because look at the way that HyuN tries to engage. You have the Ling Bane run up. All the Marines are off creep. That's super important. If you have all your Marines off creep, the Banelings, like, if you're on, okay, so let's just very quickly just push this one out of the way. Marines that are stemmed move faster than Banelings, even if Banelings have speed. This is not true when they're on creep. Speed Banelings on creep are faster than stemmed Marines. This is why as a Zerg, you want to fight on creep because Marines can't run. As a Terran, it just makes it so much easier to split when your Marines can actually run away from the Banelings. In fact, you don't have to take a fight versus slow Banelings if you don't want to. And the same goes for a Zerg player. If you want to take a fight against Terran on creep, you always can because your units just move faster. So then these fights happen, and it's like, well, yeah, you actually can't reach the Marines of the Banelings because there's just so many freaking Marines and there's no creep. There's no creep. Now the Zerg army gets on top, and what's this? Oh, Hart just pulls away because guess what? Marines are fast. I do love the use of the Corruptors on these medevacs because obviously you're going to cut down the health, and this transitions beautifully into the Broodlord play that he makes because now Hart's army is too small against 74 Lings that are being made as the follow-up here. His army is too small to actually attack. Hart's 4th base can't even land because there's an Overlord pooping creep on it. Like, not things that are not good. And then Hian gets to take this base on the right side. Like, everything in this about this game up until that 4th base, that crucial 4th base, was way in favor of Hart. But unfortunately, he doesn't get his 4th base as fast as he should, given how aggressive he was. He gets all this cool infrastructure. He doesn't really add any starports, which hurts him a lot too, because that's obviously what makes the Broodlord transition work. And yeah, then he pretty much loses. So that's really all I have to say about that game. You can look at one of the other ones now. But I still absolutely love the way that Hart takes engagements. His control is just too good. His control is just too good. It's too good. It's too good. So merry-go-round. Alright. HyuN Hart on merry-go-round. Let's see. Okay. So this was another one of the games. HyuN only won a single map in the series, so Hart wins the rest of these, right? And in this game, what exactly did Hart do? I can't quite recall. I cannot quite recall. But it's okay. So, let's see. Hart opens up Reaper. Still not really that crazy. What's the ideal way to break up Bane units against Banelings? You just gotta split them, man. You gotta grab and click. Grab and click. So, by the way, seeing the Overlord here tells Hart that HyuN spawns in the top left. HyuN once again does this very aggressive speed opener, and much like it did against Scarlet, it put the Zerg player behind. Picking off the SCV was great. That was a really nice pickup for HyuN, but it wasn't anything crazy. You just kind of delayed it a little bit, which isn't worth the trade-off of getting your own expansion so much later, because Hart goes for a 3rd command center build again this game. And this is very similar to the build, of course, that he did on Nimbus, minus the Banshee. There's just no Banshee. This is as standard straight up as you can really play Terran versus Zerg, which is, I mean, that's it. Like, it's the most standard way. You make Hellions, you open up with a Reaper, you go into Hellions, you go to Marines. HyuN has a very well-timed Baneling nest, so you wouldn't really be vulnerable to any type of early bio push. And Hart keeps a lot of his forces at home so that he can scout. And that's actually a pretty big deal. If those handful of Zerglings get in and kill these Marines, or they make their way up into the main base, then it becomes very difficult for Hart to hide what he's doing. And we kind of talked about how earlier Scarlet had trouble because she didn't know, right? At this point in the game, even though it's a standard, you know, we're at 8 minutes, HyuN doesn't know if there's a second gas, he doesn't know if there's a starport. It's all things like this that can make Zerg players a little bit cautious. You know, if you're a Zerg player, you know what I'm talking about. You always like to know if there's a 3rd command center or a second gas. Like, it is a big deal. I don't think any Zergs would argue with me on that. So Hart is just going to do whatever, and HyuN's build is pretty middle of the road. He's got this, you know, that speed that didn't really do anything for him. The 3rd hatchery is going, but there's no gas on it, so you can't quite afford all the tech that you want to get. And suddenly you see he has like quite a few minerals, so he's like, okay, let's get more drones. Now let's take the gas, get that lair. And it's nothing really mind-blowing, because Hart has been greedy enough that he's got a pretty nice economic position. And you might argue that the worker count tells a different story. HyuN has a lot of workers, true, but Hart's tech is in a much better place, having the starport ready to produce medevacs before the lair is even done, but also you having 3 command center production means he's going to catch up pretty quickly, and he still has mules. This was almost a disaster for Hart, these Zerglings catching a lot of these Hellions, but actually kills off quite a few of the Zerglings. But looking past that, Hart does something a little bit crazy this time. You'll notice that he doesn't build any more SCVs, and this is something that I was a little bit surprised by when I saw Hart do this in WCS against Hian. He didn't actually add anything else on. Like, Nate, what does that mean? Well, there was no armory, right? So without an armory, Hart can't get +2 upgrades. What else didn't he do? Well, aside from getting combat shields, like I said, if you don't build a third, if you don't build SCVs for your third, he didn't build a bunker here, he didn't build a missile turret, he didn't have any turrets on the map, he wasn't really thinking about mutas. All Hart was thinking about as he went for this push with his 1-1 was killing the Zerg player. That's like, and this might seem like any other Terran versus Zerg, but it's really important if you're a Zerg player, if you were to somehow get a scout, which isn't really possible at this stage of the game, like if you can get a changeling in and you see, well, the Terran's got 2 E-bays, no workers at his 3rd base, and he's saturated on his main and natural. Like, he's a very low SCV count. 51 is very low for 3 base. So it has to be something aggressive. It has to be. And that's what Hian didn't really anticipate, because his Baneling speed is quite late. That's also because his lair was late, but if he had started his Baneling speed as soon as his lair finished, then he would have had it by now. And this is, once again, something that allows Hart to be aggressive. Without Baneling speed, you can't catch these Marines on creep. It's the same thing like I was saying. If you have Baneling speed, you want to fight off creep. If there's no Baneling speed, you can fight on creep and get some work done. You can get some work done. You also have to keep in mind that he has these Hellions still, which complicate things even further. He's like, oh, you want to take a 4th base? Well, denying this really isn't that difficult. And he just puts up all these Hellions. He's like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. He's making Widow Mines, Medevacs, full production. Keep in mind, right as Hian's about to attack, there's still no armory. There's still no more. What's this, Nate? Still just 4 SCVs at his 3rd base. So this is pretty committed, but this is where Hart's micro just becomes so good. Like, look at this. Couple Marines up front. The Widow Mines soak up. Well, this Widow Mine actually got 16 kills. Like, holy shit, man. Well, I guess that is OP, huh? How about that? Anyway, I've seen Banelings at 16 kills. Actually, I haven't, because they die when they kill. But there are Banelings that have gotten equivalent hits. But you just leave just little morsels in front, and all these Banelings just detonate on them, and then suddenly Hart just walks up. He's like, yep, you can't really kill my army. Guess what? I'm still not building SCVs at my 3rd. Guess what? I'm still not getting an armory. 2-2 has started for the Zerg player. 1-1's been done for like 5 frickin' years. Then Hart steps up. He's like, well, Marauders and Hellions in the front. Hey, guys, I feel like I keep pointing out that we have Hellbats and Marauders up front. You think there's a... You think this perhaps is a coincidence? No. No, it's not. So, then he tries to kill the Marines. And it's like, actually, these Marauders have concussive shells, so those Banelings move very slow. There's a little graphical effect. Yeah, well, guess what? Only one Marine. Oh, only one Marine couldn't make it to his buddies. Like I said, it's very, very strong. Very, very strong way to play. And there's still a lot from Hian. Like, this is still an army that you can't fight. Baneling speed is done. Like, what are you supposed to do? Well, you should lose everything. This is like the one fight that doesn't go well for Hart all game, but still a bunch of Banelings managed to die. He goes up the ramp, and the Marauders are up front, by the way, once again. All the Banelings died on that. And the 4th base is still going to go up. Hart kind of starts to add on an armory. He kind of starts to add on a few more units. But he's in a very good position. Even if the supply looks close, the army supply is stupidly high for Hart, because we already talked about how low the SCV count was. And yeah, he moves up a little bit further. There's nothing you can really do. Like I said, Hellions and Marauders are up front. What a freaking coincidence, right? So it's pretty silly. It's pretty silly. And then these Widow Mines, actually the Widow Mines didn't really do anything in this fight. But I think Hart just had too much shit. And then, yeah, Hyun's pretty dead. He's pretty dead right now. It's like, oh, Nate, he still has an army. He's like, well, 16 Banelings aren't going to cut it when your opponent has 8 Marauders. Like, the concussive shell Widow Mine combination is pretty strong. And he runs up, he's like, yeah, I killed half the Marauders. Well, these Marines are tucked in so well. There's really, like, this position is so good because you have Marines up. These forces units to go up here. That forces them to run by these Widow Mines. That Widow Mine only has, like, 3 kills. This Widow Mine has 4 kills, but a handful of kills here and there is really, really nice. So, yep. Yeah, this is just great. Like, when the Marauders run up the ramp, it's like, you can't really snipe those. And Hart just wins because he never puts his Marines... Hey guys, he never puts his Marines on creep. Hasn't this been something interesting that we've managed to mention in every single game that Hart played? Yeah, I thought it was fucking coincidental magic too. And then he just wins because he forces him to attack off creep. Zerg units suck off creep. Sorry guys, I hate to break that to you. But Zerg units are not really that great. You know, some pushes will work if the Terran makes mistakes, but Hart plays so well. Hart plays so freaking well. The only one fight Hart lost in this game was versus Baneling speed on creep, and that's pretty magical. That's pretty magical. We can all learn from the way that Hart positions his army. Some people put the Widow Mines with the Marines. Hart puts the Widow Mines up front with the Marauders, so it's tricky, right? It's tricky. Anyway, I don't know if is there anything else really worth going over? Do we have the other game? Yes, Hart versus Hian and Catalina. We can go over this one too. Yeah, Bomber is the only exception because he's stupidly good. Bomber, nothing that Bomber does make sense. Trust me, don't try to learn from Bomber. Learning from Bomber is the biggest mistake you'll ever make because there's absolutely no way that you can emulate. No, Bomber builds just don't make sense. Catalina, we saw Hart this game. Then I guess I could probably do notes on this build. He does a 3 Reaper opening, which is really good. It's a very, very strong way to open against Zerg players on this map because you have so much space to go up into the main from. Right, so if you can go up into the main and your opponent doesn't actually have the early pool, and you know, I gotta be fair, he does go for the early pool, but you go for the gas and your mineral income is actually quite low, right? So it's pretty tricky. It's pretty tricky for the Zerg player because despite having this fast queen, it's still so weird. So the Reapers are coming out. He's already checked. It's like, okay, spawn to top right. And look at this. This is so smart. Like he did on King Sejong Station. Like I mentioned, guys, on King Sejong Station, Hart built a second Reaper and just rallied it into his natural because he's like, Hyun's been opening up 15 pool on every game, on every map that isn't, what? Every map that isn't Nimbus. If you guys don't believe me, just look at the VODs. Every single game in this series. Look at the VODs. I've been going over all the games, so yeah, he's been doing this build. So there's a reason why Hart does it. It's you don't have to blindly do it. If you do, so your opponent might call you a map hacker when they 10 pool you and your Reaper kills all their Zerglings. But it's like, yeah, this pressure is still good. Even though your opponent opens up speed, you can still get a lot done. You can kill Lings. This Queen, I'm pretty sure, dies too. This is a huge pick-off, right? These Lings come over, like, nope, can't catch me. I have greased pig Reapers, and he even scouts the third with it, which is awesome. It's just truly incredible. So what does he know? Well, 3 base, not surprising. The Reapers run away, and look at this positioning. He's just like, yeah, my Hellions are on top of the ramp, so you can't catch me off guard. If those Hellions are at the bottom of the ramp, things get ugly very quickly. You'll see me do this a lot in my own games. This might be one of the few decent things I do, but most good pros these days will have their Hellions on the ramp with 1 depot down, so they can force all these units into a choke point, right? So everything's tucked into 1 tight choke, and it's very difficult to actually do anything. So much like the game Scarlet played. Hey guys, isn't this like very close to the game we were talking about, where Scarlet makes a bunch of Zerglings that do absolutely nothing? Yes, it is very much like that. So you're starting to see a pattern here of just slightly defensive play being really, really good, because Hart's going to go for that Banshee. He has a 3rd command center already. We've already seen him do this sort of opening off the command center first that he did on Nimbus, which worked out very well for him, in case you guys don't remember. until the Broodlords came out. Then he died. But that game overall went really well for him until the Broodlords caught him off guard. Hyun this game doesn't really do anything inspiring, right? He builds roaches, he builds a baneling nest, and tries to kill him. But the most important part is that Hart takes his units, and he tries to get aggressive. He sees the roaches. Sees the roaches. Let's go to the moment he sees the roaches. Let's look at everything that Hart does in this game that changes as soon as he sees the roaches. Alright. So he sees them right now. We can see that the blue outlines. He's controlling the Hellions. He 100%. This is his vision. He sees the roaches. What does he have right now? His Banshee. He's got a bunker. He's got some Hellions. He's building some SCVs. Nothing really crazy. He's getting an armory to be aggressive with, which is fine. But what else happens? So what does he change? Well, he comes back. He's gonna go straight for a medevac. He starts building Marauders, which isn't bad. But he brings everything home. He brings everything home because he knows that trying to throw your units into your opponent's base just because, you know, you think, oh, well, roaches means no anti-air, right? But, you know, queens are pretty decent against banshees, especially without cloak. There's no cloak for Hart. So you bring everything home. He goes for medevacs, and he gets this second bunker. And second bunker is so important because, well, the baneling nest isn't done yet. Much like Scarlet versus Hart on King Sejong Station, we're starting to see a pattern here of the Zerg players against Hart. Just, if you want to get aggressive, they haven't lined up their baneling nests terribly well, right? The roaches are going to arrive, and the banelings won't be done. So when does this baneling nest finish? Now. So the roaches are at Hart's base. The banelings have just started. It takes an additional 20 seconds to morph. Look at these roaches just chilling here. You know, Hyun doesn't have as much as he'd like to have, and not to insult the guy, but this just worked out really well in Hart's favor, because that 20 seconds, well, Nathan, you know, this bunker actually just finished up, and if you go back, if we had banelings here 20 seconds ago instead of when the roaches arrived, instead of having to build them, this bunker is not done. You have a couple less Hellions, you have one Marauder less, and I guess this medevac should be out, but this Banshee also kills another roach. So suddenly nothing really works out. It's like, yeah, you broke this, but I guess what? I have another one. I have another bunker. I have all these Hellbats. Like, you're not gonna kill me. And at this point, the game, in my personal opinion, is pretty much over. The worker count is very close. The Terran player has stim and 3 orbitals. So everything just looks so good. He's got 2 engineering bays. He can start his upgrades. There's not even an evolution chamber on the map for Hyun to try and get upgrades with. And yeah, I mean, Hart could actually try to go kill him right now, but he just pulls everything back because his natural gets swarmed, which is the one good thing that Hyun gets in this game. But then Hart his production kicks in, and it's pretty much over at this point. Hyun does a decent job trying to recover because he really is a world-class player, but when you're this far behind, there's not a whole lot you can do. And that's mostly because Hart just made some smartest choices when it came to defending his bases. And we also see the number of Hellions he made gives him a lot of flexibility because he can, with that armory, turn into Hellbats at a moment's notice and take out pretty much infinite number of Zerglings. So, yeah. Yeah, this game doesn't quite fit into the Terran Imba. Maybe the last one did. That one Widowmine got like 16 kills, but like I said, sometimes a Baneling can get 16 kills. Hyun wants to get a 4th base. It's not really an option. I don't think there's anything else to talk about this game because Hart just kind of kills him because he has such a stupidly huge advantage. He has a massive advantage. So I think that's all we're going to talk about for TvZ today. Thanks everybody that's been watching online. I think I'm going to keep streaming. Check out my stream, twitch.tv/Nathanias. Check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/darknathanias. If you're watching on YouTube, I guess that's kind of pointless, but well met.